What do dreams about poetry mean? If you see yourself reciting poetry or listening to some sort of poem reading in an open space or an indoor type of room, you may be thinking that this is just another passing scene in your dream. You may be under the impression that your dream is about something else. But if the focus of your dream involved the words of the poem or some sort of spoken word type of fixation or obsession, listen up. Your dream is about poetry, and your subconscious is trying to get across some very important truths that can help you in your waking life. What follows is a contextual analysis of the different details that normally go into a poetry dream by focusing on which symbol your subconscious focuses on more or presents more or you remember more. You will be able to get a more accurate or at least a fuller, more nuanced understanding of your nighttime vision involving poetry. What does it mean to dream about poetry in general? Dreams about poetry in general symbolize the subconscious mind's attempts to process and make sense of life's complexities. The way we choose our words impacts how we perceive reality. While many words have similar meanings, they are not the same. Certain words make more sense in other contexts, and others don't quite bring across the depth and the width of the meaning of the ideas behind those words. When you engage in poetry or you're listening to good poetry, you are really listening and paying attention to somebody reframe a reality. Maybe they're doing it so you can understand it, or maybe they're doing it because they see the world in a different way. And there's something magical about it because you don't just look at things as they exist, confusing, ambiguous, and oftentimes contradictory. Instead, when you allow yourself to be transported by good poetry, you are able to see things from a different perspective. And this sense of liberation is what makes poetry in your waking life so awesome, and why it's so potent as a dream symbol in your nighttime visions. Now that you have a good idea of the general meaning of this type of dream, let's get down to the specifics. What does it mean to dream of vivid poetic imagery? Vivid poetic imagery is very different from general poetry. General poetry just basically focuses on several themes or several scenes in the same poem. You're not necessarily racing from one point to the next, but you don't dwell on a specific image. When you dream of vivid poetic imagery, you drink deep of the details. It's as if you're looking at and experiencing a three-dimensional painting. It's immersive, and it enables you to truly live out an alternate reality. At the very least, you're sensitive to it. When you have this type of dream, your subconscious is telling you that you are developing or already have a heightened sensitivity to the better things in life. You're sensitive to beauty, and you understand and can appreciate the power of knowledge and language. This indicates that either your creative potential is beginning to form, or it's going through a different phase, and you can no longer deny it, set it aside, ignore it because you're too busy. Instead, it seeks to be expressed. It wants to be heard, and you want to add your artistic or creative voice into whatever it is that you're doing. Now, this does not have to necessarily be about art. It can be about your work. It can be about your relationships. If anything, when you allow yourself to come up with a solution or to solve problems, you're tapping into your creative side. Another way to apply this on a more formal level is to write poetry or express and explore other forms of artistic expression. This doesn't mean you have to do poetry for a living. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to publish your work. But the more you do it, the more you reconnect with this side of yourself, and this can manifest into greater problem-solving skills and other practical applications in other areas of your life. What does it mean to dream of poetic themes like love, loss, or hope? When you think of poetry, there's really only a few categories that come to mind, because great poetry can basically be just reduced into a small and limited set of themes. Love, loss, and hope are definitely some of those themes, and they're classic. If these are the themes regarding your poetry dreams that you remember, what this can represent involves unresolved emotional conflicts. Maybe there was something that you cannot forgive. Maybe there's something that you did that you feel guilty or remorseful about today. Whatever the case may be, it leads to emotional conflict. And this can also take the form of unexpressed feelings. You need closure in a certain area of your life. So the more you think about poems involving love, loss, or hope, they're actually speaking to your need for closure. They're actually speaking to your need to put things into perspective and finally move on. So do yourself a big favor and pay close attention to the themes that keep coming up in your poetry dreams, and try to relate it to specific events in your life or unresolved issues. Maybe this way you can start piecing things together and connect the dots to come up with a sense of closure so you can move on. What does it mean to dream of specific poetic forms like sonnets or free verse? If the main focus of your dream is formalistic, meaning you are paying more attention to the form of the poem, this can symbolize a need for structure, organization, or better pattern recognition in your life. A lot of people who have this kind of dream tend to suffer from ADHD or an impression that life is just hitting them from many different directions and they can't quite make sense of it. I mean, they are still effective people. They are gainfully employed. They are able to keep things together, but they know deep down inside that they could organize things much better, that at the very least, they can slow things down so they're not always blindsided or surprised. If you're dreaming of sonnets and free verse, your subconscious is speaking to these needs for organization, for patterns, for structure. And the good news is you have a lot more control over this than you care to realize. You can simply adopt a to-do list. Start small. And once you get the hang of it, try to be more structured. Try to produce output that fits certain minimum quality standards based on your to-do list. There's many different ways you can tackle this, but what's important is that you're doing it in a structured way where you can see everything and you can see the outcome. And pretty soon, you will be able to come up with something that works best according to your situation, and you adapt as you move along. What does it mean to dream of poetic language like metaphors or similes? If the main focus of your dream is the actual text of the poem and how it uses metaphors or similes, this indicates that you are increasingly sensitive of the power of your words, as well as the words of people around you. This is a very empowering dream message. A lot of people struggle in their lives because they are clueless regarding the words that they choose. Please understand that words can wound people permanently, but they can also build love and loyalty permanently. That's how powerful they are. But in any given day, most people just spit out words based on what they're feeling, what they're going through, what they think that they're observing, and it's all too real for them. They think they're just living in the real objective world and they're moving on. Well, you can't be that careless, because if you're building a career or you're deepening a relationship, or better yet, you just want a better self-image so you become a more effective and efficient person, you have to watch your words. In fact, the most caution that you need to take involve words that you say to yourself. Every single day you have this soundtrack that you are playing in the background, and guess what? You set those words. Maybe you picked them up a long time ago and they seem to be operating on autopilot, but you have control over those words. Those words are your mental programming. And if you keep repeating words that no longer make sense, that describe you in such a way that you are unable to cope optimally with what you're going through right now, you're only doing yourself a big disservice. Do yourself a big favor and challenge the words that you say to yourself. You're not a loser. You're not an idiot. You're not all these things that you normally blurt out because you're frustrated. Watch what you say to yourself, because words are power. They can bring life, but they can also bring destruction. So do yourself a big favor. Pay close attention to the person that you want to be. What are that person's values? Select your words accordingly so you can become that person. Just a quick reminder. If you are enjoying this video, please click the like button and hit subscribe. Please be sure to click the bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our updates. Thanks a lot. Now back to our dream analysis. What does it mean to dream of being inspired by poetry? In this type of poetry dream, your mental camera focuses on how you're feeling and how you're acting after you hear the poem. It has little to do with the poem itself, but more about your action. This scenario represents your subconscious's desire for creative stimulation or the need to tap into your own inner sources of inspiration. Usually people who have this type of dream feel that they're stuck in their daily routine. It's as if things just proceed on autopilot and there's really nothing they can do about their routine, and the days kind of blur into each other. They feel distant from their lives. They feel almost alienated because everything is so routine. They're just going through the motions. There's a part of them that's basically resigned and thinking, well, this is my life. I'm making money. I'm taking care of my needs. I have a certain position, so on and so forth. But is there all there is to it? A lot of people would respond with a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis, depending on how old you are, and go on the deep end. They think it's all about going to the other side of the world and becoming a passport bro or a digital nomad. Other people think that it's all about just quitting their job and just getting back to basics. You don't need to be that dramatic. It may well turn out that all you need is a greater level of creative stimulation. Again, I'm not talking about necessarily artistic things. It can be as simple as giving yourself enough challenges so your problem-solving skills are in tip-top shape. It can mean pushing against your comfort zone so you're doing different things to the point where you feel creative again. You feel that there's a sense of adventure and possibility in the things that you choose to do on a day-to-day basis. Think along those lines. It's not as dramatic as you think it needs to be, but definitely address your need for creative stimulation. What does it mean to dream of expressing yourself through poetry? In this type of setting, your mental camera focuses on you reciting poetry. It could be free verse that you compose on the spot, or you could be reading somebody else's work or your own pre-written poetry. Regardless, what this type of dream often symbolizes is the desire for self-expression and a need to communicate your thoughts and feelings effectively. It probably is not a surprise to you to learn that we all need to be validated. See, it's not earth-shattering. But here's the problem. A lot of us don't demand that validation from ourselves. A lot of us are simply content to be another face in the crowd, and pretty soon this anonymity starts weighing on us. We feel unimportant. We feel that we don't matter. And guess what? When you start having those feelings, it can lead to a downward spiral, and it gets so much easier to become overly anxious and even depressive. So the easy solution to this is to just give yourself opportunities to express yourself. Again, this does not necessarily have to be artistic in nature. You don't have to pick up a paintbrush. You don't have to recite poetry. It can be as simple as raising your voice, allowing your voice to be heard during the next company meeting when somebody mentions certain issues. And if anybody has any ideas, or when you're with your friends, talk about your impressions. When you do this, you tap into your need for self-expression and you find a release. You're not bottling it up. And the more you do this, the more articulate you become. The more you are able to back up whatever claims you make, and the more open you get to other people's feedback, so you become a more efficient thinker and problem solver. Do you see how practical this could be? And it all boils down to just allowing yourself to share what's going through your mind. It doesn't have to be a life or death situation. You can phrase it in the form of questions, but what's important is you get it off your chest. What does it mean to dream of critiquing or analyzing poetry? The specific context of this dream variation is that you are analyzing a poem either by yourself or in a live Q&A type session with the poet. Both of them lead to the same place. It's about intellectual exploration. You have a part of you that needs to be challenged intellectually. That's how you grow. That's how you gain some sort of spiritual oxygen. That's how you know you're fully flourishing as a person. The problem is, if you are surrounded by people who aren't really all that intellectual or are not really all that curious about things that are theoretical in nature instead of practical, it's easy to feel lonely. It's easy to think that if you're in a job where you basically don't deal with anything abstract, that this part of yourself is drying up, shriveling away, and going to waste. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. You can join many subreddits where people share opinions. And as long as you back up your opinions with facts and clear logic, you can move on. You don't necessarily have to be right. As long as you can be open to other people's feedback and you don't take it personally, you can grow from that exchange. The key here is to understand that there's a part of you with intellectual needs. This doesn't necessarily mean that you need to get a PhD or you become a professor or a published author or any of that. It's just a part of you that wants to be intellectually engaged. That doesn't mean that you're a nerd or you're some sort of genius. You just want this stimulation so you feel like a complete person. And there's no shame in that. That's nothing to be embarrassed about or apologize for. What does it mean to dream of leaving a poetic legacy? In this context, your mental camera focuses on you. Publishing a poem and imagining the worldwide acclaim that people have about that poem. What this dream scenario represents is that you want some sort of lasting impact. You want to leave a legacy in the world. Because deep down inside, you feel anonymous. You feel voiceless. In fact, a part of you may even be convinced that no matter what you do, no matter how loud you become, nobody really pays attention because you're here one day and you're gone the next. If you're having this type of experience and you're sensing these feelings and thoughts, understand that you're not alone. All of us want to be connected with something higher. All of us want to connect with something bigger than us that can withstand the test of time. I'm going to say it. This is your spiritual side. You are yearning for God. Now, God, it can be articulated in many different ways, and I leave that to you. But do not deny your spiritual side, because if you try to fill it with physical things, this disconnect can harm you later on. If you feed your need for spiritual and higher things with substances that give you a high because of biochemical reactions, you're only doing yourself a big disservice. Use a square peg for that square slot and use a round peg for that round hole. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching this video. We appreciate your support. If you haven't already done so, please click the like button and hit subscribe. Please be sure to click the bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our updates. If you have any dreams you'd like us to interpret and analyze, please leave them in the comments. The more details you include, the better. Please do not leave your name. This is all anonymous. Check back often to see if we have published the custom analysis of your dream. We read every comment. To support our mission of helping people from all over the world live their best lives by tapping the power of their dreams, please click the share button and share this video on all your social media accounts. Thank you so much for joining us in this exploration of poetry dreams, and we'll see you in the next dream analysis.